390 Wagon Master here. Alright, today we're going to take a quick look at my Connex Saturn CX33 SSB. This is a multi-mode AM, FM, upper lower sideband CW 10 meter radio. It is done in the, what I call the Excalibur style layout here. So, you know, we've seen that in the old Excaliburs, the Galaxy Saturn bases, and all the other variants of that. So, kind of a time-tested, really good-looking design. All right, so let's get started. So in this radio, this has an EPT 3600 board in it. So that's one of my favorite export boards for many reasons, mostly in the receiver section. This is a dual final radio. This is a single IRF 520 driving 2, if I remember right. Anyway, on the front panel here, we have relative RF output and SWR meter, incoming signal and outgoing modulation meter, channel selector indicator, or channel indicator I should say, and then a 5-digit frequency counter, and then of course our little blue LEDs down here to tell you what mode you're in. And this is all done in blue. Now these were originally all blue, but the meters have been converted over to white. I got this from my buddy several years ago, a good 7-8+ years ago, from Stoner Owner over in Georgia, and he did the light modification, and I like that. I would have done it definitely because the blue just doesn't work with those. Okay, power on off. We have our SWR and calibrate switch, Roger beep switch, noise blanker ANL switch, 10 kC up switch, channel 19, our rotary channel selector. This is a rotary encoder. It's really smooth and soft touch. It is not the standard manual click type rotor setup that they used in the Cobra 148s. This is our mode control, FM, AM, upper lower sideband, and CW. RF output control. So this radio's pretty much stock. And this puts out 1 watt at minimum, and at maximum puts out 10 watt dead key on AM, FM, and RF power is not adjustable on single sideband. It's just full blown, full out. If I remember right, on sideband this thing does around 45 watts or so. All right, over here we have our SWR calibrate, and in the fully off position it is to show relative RF output on the meter. And we have our talkback control off, and then the gain on that, and then the dimmer control for the readout, and the dimmer control operates both the LEDs in the meters and on the channel selector. I usually run it right about there, somewhere around 9:30, 10 o'clock. Mic gain, RF gain. Mic gain's fully clockwise as it should be, and the RF gain I run here at about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock position, depends on my mood and whatever noise I have. Then I'll show you how effective this is here in a minute. This is for our echo. This is time and echo delay, and the time also brings in the insertion or the value, you know, how much echo you're going to bring into it. I run this at maximum delay and just barely noticeable. Like I'll put my headphones on and listen through the talkback on another radio, and or on this one if I can get it to not feed back. And I get it so you can just barely hear anything in there at all with the long delay, and I like that setup. And I use that on AM and upper lower, on AM and sideband. It doesn't really matter. This is our band switch here. This is A, B, C, D, E, F, and CB band is parked on D. It will go 80 above 40 and 120 below 1. We have our squelch control here, and then in full off position, it's PA. And then we have volume control with no off, because right, this power switch is over here. And then we have fine and coarse clarifier. Both clarifiers are unlocked. The center clarifier is unlocked. Not all companies that use the EPT 3600 board, I mean, a lot of this stuff depends on how that board is populated, but this fine clarifier here is adjustable for transmit and receive. And then of course we have 1/4 inch headphone jack as well. So really nice, has the rack handles and everything on there. I actually prefer the looks of it without the handles. I mean, this is just so common. This is kind of getting old for me, but because I think this design needs to be upgraded. I love the design, don't get me wrong, but it's been with us since the early 80s. Anyway, I like the look without the rack handles, but because this radio is in really good condition, I don't want to mark up any of the corners on the faceplate here because it doesn't have any marks. So I use the rack handles actually to protect it. So that's what we do there. And okay, let's take a look at the back of the radio. Okay, on the back of the radio, we have output for frequency counter and record jack here. So we can plug into, I believe that's somewhat close to line level, SO239 panel mount. We have our PA speaker jack there, our external speaker jack, and CW key jack as well. And of course then our fuse and our power inlet. So what you see here is you see maybe the back of that double stick tape in white here. Then of course we've got this area open here. This is kind of this airflow design that I play around with this radio because I'm trying to stabilize the temperature of this radio and try to help it from drifting around so much, because these, a lot of these Ranger boards, if you don't already know this, these Ranger EPT 3600 boards and other Ranger boards, they're pretty drifty. Galaxy radios, they're pretty drifty on single sideband, and you don't really notice it on AM, but on sideband you do. And they'll drift, a couple hundred cycles. So yeah, I mean, they're just not built like they used to be. They don't, they're not using really quality crystals and stuff in here, and we get a lot of drift from that kind of stuff. So anyway, we will, let's see, I just want to show you how well that A&L noise blanker circuit works out, and then I'm going to show you some inside shots of this and explain the cooling here. It's done for two reasons. We've got this dynamatted and insulated for sound and for stabilization of heat. So here's the lid. And as you can see, it's been dynamatted, the top, the sides, and gosh, off camera here, you can just hear how nice it sounds here. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but yeah, this made a big difference. So I got this radio from my buddy Mark, old Stoner owner. So he did the Dynamat work to it. This is comes from some old external speaker projects that was done back in the day, and this is what I do to my external speakers on my Madison and stuff. So anyway, that's got a nice sound to it, just great, as opposed to this. Okay, this is just the lid to Madison. So, big difference. Now, there are folks out there that are like, well, you're going to have heat issues and stuff. Well, as far as the Connex goes, I'm okay with that. That's why I did that forced cooling system, because I kind of wanted to get the radio to a certain temperature and just try to stabilize it as much as I could. And that's the idea in that. And that's because of the drifting. So the radio is not susceptible to, hot and cold so much as far as it building up heat inside. It's just semi-stabilized. And that works pretty darn good, I must say. On a radio, say like the Madison, get this cover off here. I don't want to scratch that. On the Madison, these radios were meant to cool better. So on the bottom plate on the Connex at these Excalibur style Galaxy Plutos, or not Pluto, Saturn type bases, the bottom. The bottoms are not perforated, and these radios cool by convection, right? So as they get warm, they draw cold air up from underneath. And that stabilizes pretty good. They're not bad. And then of course it has they have the perforations here on the lid, and then on the back of the radio it has a lot of perforations as well. So anyway, when you would dynamat something like this, you would just do this area here, maybe put a little strip here, and a little strip here, and then maybe just this piece here, put one in here. Or you could just basically lay a piece out, measure this, and then just cut it out. If you wanted to put strips in between here, I mean, that's okay. But and then this would act the same way. It would get to a certain temperature and pretty much stabilize. And that would be for, you know, like what I call real world talking, not contesting or anything, but you get a little long-winded or something, and the radio heats up, drifts a little bit, and you know, you adjust your clarifier, you get to where you're at, you want to go and break away, grab a cup of coffee or something, come back, it's probably not going to drift away. Not so much on these old school Madisons and stuff, but on these Ranger style Galaxies and these EPT3600 boards, you need stuff like that. This is a pretty tough radio to film. I'm going to try to see if I can get my filter to cut some of that out. Okay. You know, it's the radio's clean. I mean, I haven't detailed this in quite a while, but the radio's a really clean radio, and in order for me to use this camera and not have it come out grainy, I need more light, and of course the light's not looking too good on there. All right, let's check out this Noisemaker A&L. Let's go to AM. We're on AM. So I run my RF gain at about 1 to 2 o'clock. Okay, and the reason why I do that is because I have a lot of line noise here where I live. I live in old part of the city, and I get a lot of line noise. So if I run it right about here, I get about 1 S unit on the meter, and that's a great signal to noise ratio for me. Here's what it sounds like without the Noisemaker A&L. Of course, that makes it worse, and it saturates the gain control, and it gets kind of weird, or the AGC, I'm sorry. So I run it like this. As I run most all of my radios, even my Cobra 2000 stuff, I run it like that. Can you hear that signal out there? Yeah, it's a really effective Noisemaker circuit, even though, you know, like I say, other companies use this board, but it's how they populate the board and how they utilize different features. And Connex did a really good job with how they have this set up, I think. Let's check out sideband.
Yeah, he said he can't hear you.
Okay, so really quick, what I usually do is I run this, the course at 12 o'clock, and when I'm starting off cold like I am right now, the fine clarifier is usually down here. And because this slides on transmit and receive, I can still, you know, people don't have to hunt for me, and I can dial in on the people I want to. And of course, any given operator, you know, they can be off frequency. But it's got a really good tone quality to it. Let me find somebody that sounds good. You guys got that ceramic mic sound. Been hearing a lot of good sounding stations right in here. And then that little upgrade with the little upgrade here with the Dynamat. If there is a say like a, you know, guy running a hammy ham radio or something like that, and he's got that overemphasized, you know, low end, it does show up really good with this.
Like yesterday, you know, if I was working all day, I'd get up in the morning, I'd have a coffee, or probably have a little one fucking game. 4:30 in Boston. Yeah, Tennessee, it takes.
Yeah, it'll sound pretty good. Okay, let's take Let's take a look at the inside. So we've got the internals here. This is your basic generic EPT 3600 board, EPT 3600 15C. Actually, dual final. IRF, what was it, 520, driving two 520s. Pretty big AM regulator in there. Anyway, it's kind of rat's nesty, and I've been into this area, so I need to tie this up a little bit. I had to get in here last year, but anyway, this is how this came from Connex. So kind of sloppy, but that's the way it is. So I have the fan down here. This is a relatively low RPM fan. It's pretty quiet, pretty darn quiet, and it's drawing air in from underneath. And the idea was to pressurize the cabinet, and I'm kind of in this experimentation mode with the double stick here. But we have a big hole right here that's stamped out, and I originally put the fan in here, and I had this hole down in the bottom to draw air up, and anyway, that didn't work. So I tried to somewhat pressurize it with the double stick, filling up the holes in the fins back here, or the little cutouts here. And the idea was to pressurize the cabinet, bring in the cool air here by this AM regulator back here that gets real hot, and then exhaust air out this way. So I blocked off this little channel so it just wouldn't escape so quick. And it does a pretty good job of evening the temperature out. You can feel this after several hours of operation, that for the most part the lid is pretty evenly warm or cold. This area right here, where the transformer is in the switching power supply, right here in the lid, it's a degree or two warmer than the rest of it when you check for temperature, when it's all buttoned up, but that's fine. It's definitely better than it was. So this is working. You can feel airflow coming out of the back. Unfortunately, some of it escapes through the switches and whatnot in the faceplate here, but overall it's better than it was. The fan doesn't make any noise. It's really, I mean, once you have the volume just up off, then the sound of it goes away. But yeah, that's pretty good. It does a pretty good job. The lid I'll show you here is all dynamatted, and that was done to improve the audio quality of the built-in speaker, and it makes the cabinet quite dead. And this back here was not dynamatted, but that's okay. That's a fairly dead piece of material as far as acoustics go. But yeah, it helped out a lot. Anyway, so I'll just go in here, clean up this hamburger, and we'll put this thing back together.